Hello and welcome to Holistic Flow. I'm your host, Julie. I'm an astrologer, coach, and founder of Wild Radiance Collective. And today I'm joined by Quibilah, who makes healing more accessible to marginalized people and curates sacred spaces for them to honor and ritualize their healing and transformative moments. Quibilah offers collective and one-to-one sound healing and Reiki sessions, and as a ceremonialist and death and grief doula, she holds sacred space in ceremony for others as they navigate life's transitions. So beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Quibilah.
Yes, I'm so honored to be here with you, Julie. It's been a while since we've had this interaction with each other on video. I remember our first time speaking, it just flowed so effortlessly a few years ago. And so I'm honored that you invited me to your podcast to share more about what I do and offer.
Thank you. Yes, I completely agree. I've been reflecting on that time a lot recently when we first spoke, knowing our call today was coming up, and I look forward to just being in this really safe and healing energetic space with you because you emanate it. You are just this very grounded and kind, compassionate vibe that you emanate. And I can feel it. You know, we've never met in person. I feel as though we have. That's how just beautiful your energy is. And I know you bring that into all of your work. So tell us more
Thank you.
about yourself.
Yes, I am Quibilah. I am the sacred space holder at Sacred Ascension, which is all the things that Julie mentioned before. I'm in my new sacred space where I will be offering one-on-one Reiki healing sessions as well as one-on-one sound sessions, also intimate ceremonies to honor life's transformative moments, meditation, all of that in the space. I also have a soft opening ceremony or several ceremonies coming up at the end of this month and a couple next month. So if you're in the Austin, Texas area, would love to have you stop by.
Your space is beautiful. I love the photos that I've seen on your Instagram profile. And as you can see, if you're watching this podcast episode on video, the background is the backdrop of your studio space.
Yes, yes, a lot of love, prayer, and all the things have gone into this space. I was mentioning to Julie earlier that prior to the podcast today, I was building some furniture to set up the space, and I actually nicked my finger on a tool or something, and then I just heard the ancestors say, yes, your blood needs to go into this space too. It's yours. You've worked so hard for it. So
Yeah,
yes, it's a blessing and an honor to have it.
that's beautiful. That's to have that acknowledgement, you know, to be like leaning into it like that and have it to be so tangible because
Yes.
I one of the things I really love about connecting with you on Instagram and is that all of your work is like deeply touching and not just in like a mental self-awareness or thinking way. Like a lot of my work, while I do have energetic work as a part of it, it is very much about thinking and reflection and understanding ourselves. Your work is bringing in like the sound healing and bringing people together into physical places that are really important. And I would love if you would tell us some more about some of the ceremonies that you lead and have led. I am especially interested in hearing about the ancestor work that you've been doing in some of these spaces. I'd love for folks to hear about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So yes, as a ceremonialist and a death doula and grief doula, it is very, very, very important to me and to the work that I do to bring people together, especially with honoring and ritualizing grief. Because we have a tendency as a society to ignore grief or completely isolate when we are in a grieving space. And so a lot of the work that I do for the community is to create a space for people to show up as themselves with their griefs, and we're going to move through it. We're going to honor it. We're going to call it forward, and we're going to transmute it. Because as we know, when we ignore grief, it manifests and grows into other things that are not beneficial, unhealthy, toxic, and it could really impact our health in negative ways. And so that's a lot of the work that I've done the last couple of years. I held space with the Grief Jam, and basically it's just a dance party to move through your grief. We have an altar space there. We open up with a tea ceremony, breath work, stretches, just to get back into our bodies, because a lot of us, we disassociate and we disconnect from ourselves when we go through something extremely painful. And so we moved through that as a group. And then I put on some instrumental music. I have props. I encourage people to bring handheld instruments if they want to. And we create the space for them to move, dance in a judgment free zone for about an hour, just so that the grief can move out of their body. They're welcome to visit the altar space at any time to release in the form of tears, to give gratitude and just like honor what it is that they're grieving or who they're grieving. Because as we know, we often associate grief with the loss of a person, but it can be a loss of a job, a loss of ourselves. It can be just loss, period. And then we also had a station where we had like essential oils and just different tinctures where people can just take care of themselves. We had Kleenex on the table. And so, again, just really ritualizing grief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And it doesn't happen enough in
It
our world.
doesn't. And it shows. It
Yeah.
shows. It does. And part of the ancestral work that you mentioned, there is a Black cemetery, gravesite, burial ground in Austin, Texas. It's the first one for African Americans, Black people. And the city of Austin is growing. It's on the east side of town. It's actually 11 minutes away from me, so I can get to go give honor and reverence. But for the past 2 years, me and one of the people that I hold space with for this cemetery have gone and just invited the community to come out for collective prayers, because the city of Austin is growing so much that particular cemetery was at risk for just being forgotten and being built up around. Eventually, like, the fear is that they will build on top of unmarked graves, because
Oh.
the cemetery is from late 1800s or mid 1800s to like early 1900s. So back then, the only way you can mark a grave is with a rock or a stone, because we didn't have the money as Black people to invest in like headstones and all of that. And so the fear is that they're going to build on top of those. And so it was placed on my heart and my spirit to just offer prayers for the land, and for the people who are buried there. The first time I walked in that graveyard, I just felt this overwhelming sense of grief and this feeling of being forgotten, because again, those graves, some of them are so old that their descendants have probably already passed on or no longer in the area. I have been working with the person here who has been upkeeping this cemetery for over 30 years. And so it's wonderful that she's been pouring into that, but she needs support. It has been a battle for her because the city, of course, pushes back. And so it's just beautiful to see the progress since we started answering prayer. I mean, having the prayers there. It's called Ancestral Prayers. She's gotten awarded grant money to just like really revitalize and put some TLC into some of the headstones that are cracked or damaged. So yeah, it's just been like a really, really like beautiful journey. I thought that I was just going to show up with my sound bowls, I pray, give my offering to the land, but it just turned into this really like big, beautiful thing. And we've committed to offering it for 4 years to honor the 4 directions. So we're halfway through.
I think that that is incredible. And it really goes to show you that when we make a commitment to something, sometimes we don't even know exactly what we're committing to, but we continue to follow that path, which I know that you do as you listen to your ancestors and your guides. And then all of a sudden this path or experience becomes clear. And the transformation is just so profound and overwhelming. And one of the things that I'm just blown away by with you is that you are making a difference at your local level.
Mm-hmm.
And that I admire that. I find that so inspiring. As someone who lives in rural New York, I don't have I haven't quite found a local way to get involved in my area that would be aligned with my work or what I'm about. I'm actually kind of an odd duck out here. So my means of making a difference and building connection is currently mostly online. But I am in such strong desire to find a way to become part of my community at a local level and make impact the way you are. And like that's why in the beginning of this conversation I was like, tell us about this tangible part of what you're doing, because I didn't want to tell anything for you, but there's just something very different from doing something virtually and online that can reach lots of people. That's wonderful, but I'm learning more and more every day with more people I talk with, the more people I collaborate with and connect with. And I'm also finding that collaborations like this, where we're talking with one another and we're sharing, they aren't, they become like this little stepping stone on my own path. And
Mm-hmm.
it feels very serendipitous. And our conversation today is feeling just like that, because I'm feeling this big, like, powerful surge in my heart for like, yes, you have got to follow Quibilah's role in being like locally active, like find a thing and commit to it and do that. So I'm really excited to hear you've committed to this experience for the 4 years. And so you've done 2 directions.
Mm-hmm.
Which are the
Yeah.
2 directions you've done so far?
I believe East and West. And it's so interesting too, because the more I get involved in its activism, it's spiritual activism, right? The more I get involved in the spiritual activism, the more I uncover. I also learned that that land that the cemetery is currently sitting on was a part of this massive trail called the El Camino Real Trail in Texas. And I don't recall like how far it goes, but it was this like trade trail. And during that time, there were enslaved people in this area. And that is the trail that they traveled to go to Mexico to find their freedom. And
Wow.
so this past year, we made it a point to honor those souls that traveled that way. Some of them obviously probably lost their life on the way to freedom, unfortunately. But again, I feel like that is that like sense of being forgotten and not remembered. So we made sure to honor them and just made it about them. And oddly enough, where the trail is, because you can still see like the indention in the earth and the land because there was a lot of traffic there.
Wow.
Oddly enough, the first year that we offered ancestral prayers there, we had it in that space, in that area. Yeah.
Wow. And you didn't know that at the time,
I did
what
not
that
know
was.
it at the time.
Interesting.
I have chills all
Feels,
over my body. Yeah.
yes, I just felt that moment of wow. Like you were
Mhm.
drawn to that space. Like that was where it
Mhm.
felt like where your attention and your needed to put your energy and set yourselves up. That's incredible.
Yes, and this past year, we went to another part of the cemetery with this huge, huge, beautiful tree. We call it Abuelo. And the first time we met Abuelo, because he was in the back, it was dark. It was just dark energy. back there. We went to make offerings and songs to him and just like letting him know, like, this is what we're doing, give gratitude for him holding up the space. Tried to approach him. I felt this pierce in my heart. And it made me stop in my tracks and close my eyes. And then I just saw all of these images of him being violated throughout the years. And it made me really sad. And I released in the form of tears for him. And so at that point, he was not ready to receive what we had to offer in that area. So we approached him again last year after, like, still, like, throughout the time span, going to make offerings, going to just visit, because Bethany Cemetery is a very, like, peaceful place. It's very, very peaceful. And so we asked for his permission to hold space around him and make him the altar this time around. And I promise you, I played my sound bowls for him and I heard giggling. It's just so such a shift in his energy. And I know people are probably like, she talks to trees. Um, she hears trees, but it's just a
I
part.
have favorite trees. Since I was a child, there's specific trees in my life. There's always a tree. So I imagine a lot of our listeners know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Well, great, because the energy has just been shifted so much since we started there. So much. And I'm looking forward to continuing out the 2 years. And I know that you asked me about the other ceremonies that I offer, because that's a piece. I'm also
Yes, I know you offer so much. Like, I'll make sure everybody has a chance to know how to connect with Quibilah after, because I'm so honored to get to be a part of, like, someone that knows you and sees your work, and I'm so excited to share it. So, like, there's more. So she's gonna tell us everything she can now, but make sure you go to Instagram and connect. And
Yeah, so I also am an ordained minister. Didn't even really see that coming because I'm so, like, spiritually open. And so I also officiate wedding ceremonies, commitment ceremonies, vow renewals. I had my first wedding last year that I officiated and played sound bowl. So sound healing to, like, open up the space and bless the brides. And it was really, really beautiful. I also hold space, again, transformative moments, right? For menstruation ceremonies. I had the opportunity to hold space for 3 young ladies who just started bleeding, and their parents got together and wanted to honor them as they approached womanhood and celebrate them. And again, like, our society, we don't do that enough. And I've recognized that a part of my work here is to reclaim, like, the ancient ways that we used to be with each other. And so, again, grief as a collective, honoring and creating ceremony for bleeding as women, or womb holders, I'll say, is really, really important to me. And something that I'm also extremely excited about, because I recently finished my certification to become a certified death doula, is to start offering living funerals, living memorials, for people. I think it's so important that people receive their flowers when they're here. And I know it's that, outside of the box thinking, but honoring our dying and dead is also an ancient way. And as, someone who lives in the United States, it's just become this really industrialized, commercialized business when it should be with family and loved ones. And so that's something that I'm excited to launch and put out there into the world as part of my work.
that's a beautiful offering. And I know that part of the reason I personally feel so held by your writing and your work is that it feels so natural, and it is ancient, and it is not commercialized. It is holding us in our heart space. Like, that is how your words make me feel. And I know I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say that I know you give that to everyone, and that's what people feel. And these things that you're doing are so important. And some of my favorite things that you're doing are acknowledging these transitions, these transitions that are going, you know, sometimes they're swept under the rug depending on your upbringing, your family, who you're going with, or they're just not given the time and space to feel the feelings. And I'm sure some of those feelings you find in these situations are feelings of grief. And so it's like some of these, you're really helping people grapple with some of the most challenging and transformational experiences that we ever have in our life. And to hold that kind of energy and care so compassionately and with so much grace is incredible. And I want to say thank you. I really do. Yeah,
Thank
from my
you.
heart to yours. I know that that's how you make others feel. And getting a little emotional, so I'm gonna I'm gonna keep going. Tell us when, actually, why don't you tell us about your workshop a little bit, and tell us more about it. So Quibilah's workshop is on Friday, February 28th at 12 p.m. Eastern time, and it's live on Zoom. You can also get the replay. It's called Grief as a Sacred Gift. And there's nobody else I would want to hold me in grief. I know that. Like, I tell us about your workshop.
Yes. So grief is a sacred teacher, and I'll share a little bit about my grief journey. And I know that we're all feeling grief, especially at this time, these days that we're living in. I mean, California is literally on fire. North Carolina is still trying to find its way. So the world, and then of course, some of us are feeling grief because of the most recent election results, and so we all just grapple with grief. And as a society and as a people, we are not taught how to acknowledge grief, honor grief, sit with grief. And so 3 years ago, yesterday was my mom's 3-year death anniversary. I held space for my mother's transition from this realm in the most beautiful way. She hadn't been feeling like she's been having health issues for years, and a month prior to her transition, didn't even know that the time was approaching, but I sat and we finalized her end of life plans. I'm so grateful that I had the insight to do that and that she was open to doing that, because what unfolded a month later, I just needed what I received a month prior to that. So I held space for her in the most beautiful way, and she had what some would call a good death. I was able to get her home, hospice, supported in the way that they could, because we were still the aftermath of a pandemic, right? So it was only so much that they could offer. Held space with her, with my aunt, who also, her younger sister, who was in the healthcare field. So she really was able to step up and do the healthcare stuff that I couldn't do. But I played her favorite music. I held her hands. She was nonverbal. She could not see. And she was in the bedroom that we shared as I grew up. And it was in the house. She passed away in the house that she grew up in. So it was our family house. And my child, her only grandchild, was able to say goodbye and sing the songs to her that they used to sing. So again, just normalizing, ritualizing death. Most people will be like, why would you have a young child see that? Why not? It's a part of life. And so, of course, felt real like grief because of the transition of my mother. I'm an only child. I didn't have siblings to support. It was just me and my daughter. And then I think shortly after that, that's when I met you, and we had we talked about it. We had the conversation, and then just a few short months after that, my aunt, who helped me and supported me with supporting my mom's transition, she died by gun violence. She was murdered. And that just took me deep, deep, deep into grief. I was not expecting it. I had just lost my mother, and then to lose another mother figure, because my aunt was also present in the house that I grew up in. So she was like another mother to me. Um, I just felt so out of my body. And I remember there were times where I would just lay on the ground and cry. And just like I needed to feel the support of the earth, like holding me. Because no one taught me how to grieve. I just had to like tap into that inner wisdom. I knew that I needed the earth's energy, because who I am, I was in the ethers. I wanted to be with them. Like part of me was with them. And I remember receiving the message as I was being cradled by the earth. I am your mother, or the earth is your mother. I have you. I'm going to support you. And so from there, I shifted, and I was like, I don't want to grieve alone. I shouldn't have to grieve alone. There are tribes and villages around the world that come together when people are hurting and grieving. So I called in community, and I created spaces for my own grief, but to hold space for other people who were grieving and didn't have a chance to. They've just been stuffing it and stuffing it and stuffing it. And those who were brave enough and ready showed up. And so with this workshop, I'm just going to talk about grief. I'm going to honor it. We're going to call it forth as a group, as participants. And then I'm going to give you a ritual afterwards so that you can continue with the work of honoring grief. Because grief is going to always be a part of life. And sometimes it comes at the most inconvenient time. Even with me, as someone who just sits with this work and knows what grief is, it hits me. It hits me at the most inconvenient time sometimes, and it stops me and it slows me down. And that is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to slow you down. And society doesn't want you to slow down. It doesn't want you to not be productive so that you can continue to operate as a machine. And so I just want to invite you to honor yourself and honor your grief, and to slow down and attend this workshop, because I think it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful and powerful. I feel like I'm hoping people are starting to gather what it's like to be in space with you. The way you just described that, the way the energy just came forth, and how you ritualize, and the energy and intention you bring behind it, and how it only takes one profound experience like that in a workshop like this, where you reframe your experiences and you feel it in your body, to know, oh, I don't like what I've been doing. I should do something different. It's like a wake up call, but not in a wake up call like a shot of caffeine from a coffee or something. It's like a deep sinking in, and you're like, whoa. And
Mhm.
then it's being in that discomfort, because we have to be in that discomfort, that is that like wake up call. And you're just able to navigate that space so well. And I think it's really great that you say, like, I do this work. I've lived it. It's a part of my everyday life. And I'm also I'm not above it. Like there's no cure all here. This is continuous. And
Mhm.
from my own experience with grief, it is very cyclical. And it never really goes away. You just, which I know I'm more speaking from experiences and as to be telling you like something, and it never goes away. You just learn to feel it different in your body. For me, that's how it is for me.
We have to make space for it. And what you describe is alchemy at its like purest, like transforming. That's my work. We transform, we make space to experience it different because it is a teacher. It cracks your heart wide open so that you can emanate love. And although painful, we need more love here. We need more love.
We do. The word alchemy is perfect.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
And we need it to have that love.
Mm-hmm. Ashe.
My gosh. Thank you so much, Quibilah. This has been an amazing conversation. I really am excited for you all to come to Quibilah's workshop and learn how grief is a sacred gift. And it's on, just to say again, it's on Friday, February 28th, live on Zoom at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can get access to the replay as well. I'm going to put all the links to the workshop in the show notes. I'm going to let you know how you can connect with Quibilah. And to connect with Quibilah on Instagram, you will go to sacred_ascension. So her Instagram handle is sacred_ascension. And I highly recommend you going and checking out all of her content. And if you want to be held and cared for as you navigate life's transitions and these big, deep feelings, go there and check out her resources and content. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julie. I look forward to holding space with you all very soon.
It's going to be amazing.